The Renegade Accelerator is open for enrollment, female leaders, executives, founders who are asking themselves, why not now? This is for you. Head to renegadeaccelerator.com. I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now Show. Today's guest is Jen Batchelor. She's a friend, she's an inventor, she's the founder of Kin Euphorics. She's also a mom. In this conversation, we explore what brought her to her Why Not Now idea, creating a new company, creating a product in a new industry, and everything was new. She shares that specific moment, but she also shares what led up to it, things in her childhood that she now realizes played a role. We talk about the growth of the company. We talk about the adversity that comes with that and everything in between. She has found her true zone of genius. This is what she's uniquely qualified to do on the planet, and I find that incredibly fascinating. Here is my good longtime friend, Jen Batchelor. Jen, welcome to the Why Not Now show. Excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here.
Me too.
I'm like giddy.
Me too. And we might take it way back, but
we need to.
We both live in Austin, so this is perfect.
Yeah.
And let's hop right in.
Let's do it.
In the spirit of Why Not Now, can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you had to ask yourself, why not now?
Yes. I mean, I'm the founder of a company called Kin Euphorics. This was really my first breakout solo venture in a really long time. And I really remember now thinking about it, this moment where I was just kind of, doing my research. I'm very Virgo, analytical minded. I have to collect all the data before I understand if something is right for me or if I really want to dive in, if it's worth diving in, if I really feel like I can contribute properly. And I was in Whole Foods and I asked a clerk, somebody who was running around stocking shelves. I said, listen, I'm looking for something that is stress relieving, okay, and something I can enjoy socially, right? Mm-hmm. And it has to be clean and non-toxic.
And
bonus points.
Poor clerk.
I know, it was like, okay, and here I am in like the Whole Foods, health foods mecca of the world, right? Whole Foods has made themselves like the designation for that, or destination for wellness. And so I'm looking at him and I said, bonus points if it's nutritive, right? If it's nutritious. So he's like kind of freaking out. He's like, all right, well, come to the supplements aisle, right? Like that's where I can think of where the most nutrient dense things that we have here are the most healthy, medicinal, stress relieving. And he brings me to something that's called Box Remedy, which is a spray that you spray underneath your tongue. And he says to me, you really want to spray this under your tongue before a stressful moment in your life. I was like, oh, sweetheart, I don't know about you, but I very rarely premeditate my stressful moments, right? Unless it's like a talk or something that I'm like exceptionally nervous about. But I was like, this isn't going to cut the mustard, and it's not social. So then, of course, in a moment of levity, he's like, all right, well, come on, girl, I'll take you to the wine aisle. And I said, I said non-toxic. So this journey, this conversation, which was very lighthearted, but also just very like getting to the root of this problem that I was having and I knew millions and millions of other people would have, was just so clear that even the best of the best, right, didn't have a solution for. I was like, I got to dive in. It doesn't exist. We need to create something. And I know more people like me deserve it because we want to be on our A game. We still want to have fun, right? Yep. And that drinking ritual is something that really holds a lot of connectivity. So why can't we improve upon it? Why not now?
Why not now? And this timestamp 2017?
Yep.
Okay. So we've known each other for a long time, right? And I've been tracking, we don't stay in touch every day by any means, but because of the interwebs, like you can kind of see and keep touch. I remember a season where it's like you found your lane. Like something happened where it was like, oh, Jen, she did it. She landed. She's in her zone of genius. And I don't say that lightly because there was just an energy. And it's so cool to witness when people arrive there. Can you talk a little bit about pre-this?
Yeah.
So what you had done before and dabbled in and or started and just your interests that led you to this moment.
Yeah, and even my upbringing, I think, right? There's so much of like almost like a karmic imprint in what I'm doing now, and of course you only really see it in hindsight. But I grew up in Saudi Arabia, a country that is still under prohibition to this day. My dad was working for many years, 15 years, for their airline, the Kingdom's Airlines, called Saudia. And, you know, he came into this circle of, you know, we lived amongst, you know, 3,500 expats, families from all over, mostly Western, but you had everyone from, you know, Australians to Brazilians, and folks from the UK, and of course the States. And he realized that, you know, the one thing that sort of brings us together is libation, like being able to have a drink together at the end of the day. As dicey as it was, because we're in the Middle East, you know, and we're breaking a law doing this, we did feel very secure and protected on the base, in the community itself. And so I think my dad started just like creating his own concoctions, brewing his own beers, making his own wine.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool.
Yeah, and by the time we got there, because he was there 3 years before we arrived, he had a full-on production, facility running out of the house, and an English-style pub in the living room. I kid you not.
And how old are you right now?
So I arrived there at like 8, 9 years old.
Okay. And you're watching this go down.
And I'm just
in
like,
the Middle
what
East.
is this? Like, I was blown away. And of course, like, it was also kind of fun to see my dad living his entrepreneurial truth and like that spirit of community. My dad tends to be kind of a shy guy, you know, on the outside, but he loves bringing people together. He loves crafting. He's one of the best chefs that I know, like, you know, whether it's restaurant or not, like he is just so attention to detail, loves to really serve others in that way. And so that was very true of the way that he approached, you know, making his different drinks and bringing people together. So I lived in that very much, like physically, and then saw it kind of growing up, how our house was the watering hole. It was the sort of central nucleus for this community of people who were craving family and craving connection. We were all, you know, tens of thousands of miles away in some cases from family. So I really valued and honored that. There was something really cool about that too, as an only child. You know, my brother came much, much later in my life. And so I immediately had this family to plug into, kids included, right? Because it was, you know, a bunch of families living there. So I think I took a lot of that even if, you know, 15, 20 years down the line, my value propositions around how I wanted to live, right? And how I want to show up for myself and how much alcohol kind of got in the way of my dreams and goals. The things I wanted to preserve were very much the things that my dad actually valued, which was community, people being seen, feeling included. And that's a lot of the spirit that I bring to Kin. It's not clinical, diagnostic, it's not stigmatic. I don't want you to feel badly for choosing this. I actually want you to feel like you're part of this party. And by the way, this party's way cooler than whatever other party's going on down the street.
Yeah.
So
like
that's
celebratory.
Very much so.
And almost ceremonial. Like let's go ahead.
Cheers.
But there's something about that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then being able to toast and
cheers.
That's amazing. Okay, I didn't know that part of your story.
Yeah. And just like, I don't know, again, I love this one. So the idea that, you know, we were living such a life of, on its surface, there was a lot of hypocrisy there, right? Because how did my dad get away with this for so long? And it was because the very folks making that law were also breaking that law. And so there's a lot of layers to this where I'm like, wow, they're willing to put their reputation at risk. My dad's willing to do all this for what? What is that really special, cool thing that it's doing that's so worth, you know,
risking.
diverging, either from your values system or really putting yourself at risk, right? With the powers that be. So I was just fascinated by that. And
it really wasn't about the alcohol.
No.
Was it?
Ever. No.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. And so, like, you know, I got obsessed over time with mood and what really makes us feel relaxed and what is so compelling about that. And can we arrive at that in a more sustainable way? And what are the social dynamics that actually enhance those feelings? That was really interesting to me as well. So there's a lot of science we can unpack with how we ended up coming up with the formulations, but that's really the genesis.
Thank you for sharing that. That it speaks so much to just the aura and the energy I could see when you were building this. And by the way, it's like beautiful. Like talk about branding and your vision. It was tangible. So let's go back to Whole Foods. First step that made it feel real for you. What was that?
Oh gosh. I mean, I was living for so long, like a year in my head of the world of Kin. What would this world look like, feel like? What would a post-alcohol era look and feel like? How would people move physically? How would they think? How would they treat each other? And so I'd been dreaming this dream for just day in and day out, right? And even in my actual dreams. And so I think seeing the brand come to life, seeing, even just being at the photo shoot, going around, I was peddling these potions all over New York City and in LA and random places. And I'd just watch people try these concoctions that we were creating, and they would light up. And just so seeing both the brand take on a personality, but also the liquid itself enhance other people's experience, like the confluence of that, which was probably around actually early 2018, so almost a full year before we commercially launched. I was like, this is real. Like there's a real need here. There's a real shift here. There's a true resonance without me having to explain all of the trimmings and the whys. I never had to do a hard sell. Our first 10,000 customers got it like that.
Yeah.
It was innate. It was intuitive. And so that's when I really knew, like, oh gosh, this is not just going to be some old product that gets hawked out there in the market. It's going to be a cult following. It's going to be a unifying totem for a new way of doing things.
So if we could take the timeline and just like the movie trailer from there till now, because it has been such a journey. And then this category has also just arrived on the scene, right? And there's been a lot of, I imagine the competitive set, what it was then, zero almost, pretty much, right? You were the first, and now. So landmarks and the growth, but also maybe some of the challenges and the things you've tried. Because we could go all day with you on the science side and the health side. Like you speak that language and it's so legit. That's not always true elsewhere, but yeah, take us along the path to now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, so in the beginning, it was kind of like, well, I don't have all the answers, so I need to really bring the heat. And I'm also just voraciously curious myself, right? Like I was mentioning, when we think about the pleasure molecules in our brain, right? Like what are the things that are actually triggering a sense of relaxation, whether it's physically, mentally? Where do we go to feel safe in our minds? Where do we go to feel connected, confident, right? Serving all these people. So it was like there was a pool of just sort of grassroots or organic volunteers, people that were offering their stories to me that I would learn from, and then we were kind of going out into the world and peddling these wares and actually trying to get feedback from each other. So I mean, I had a beta group of 2,500 people that went out to their inner circles and were like, would you drink this? Is this weird? When would you drink it? How do you feel? And there was all this curiosity around that. But then I also pulled in the big guns. I had neuropharmacologists, endocrinologists. I had, neuropharmacologists. Those are the people making the antidepressants, the ADHD medications, really looking at neurodivergence as something that you can impact from the inside out, and vice versa. And it was fascinating. All these folks had these little clues. It was like they all contained in their body of work and their study puzzle pieces of what makes a good mood. Let's just start there. Just as a simple thesis. We can unlock good mood. We can unlock best self.
Sexy.
By harmonizing our hormones. What do you have to say, endocrinologist? Or mending our gut. What does the gastroenterologist have to say? And so collecting all these puzzle pieces from all these experts and then laying it out for myself to serve my thesis, which really none of them were thinking about per se, really created a like new field for people to explore deeper, to think about it more in a recreational versus a prescriptive way. And so I think doing all that work, all that lead up has allowed us to go in many, many different directions over the last 7 years. We're not a one-trick pony. We're ingredient agnostic, right? We're not like, ooh, 5-HTP, this is the panacea. No, there's so many ingredients. There's so many paths to helping people feel well that we had to be indiscriminatory about it. We had to be really, really welcoming of biotechnologies and, concepts from Eastern tradition, solutions from Western med and biohacking. So we really were the first. If you look at how do you pioneer something, you have to be willing to fall flat on your face and fail, to have your thesis and your hypothesis be wrong. But also to go where most folks have not gone and where most folks will tell you not to go. A lot of people, especially in the beginning, CPG experts, right? Why would you ever marry Eastern tradition herbs with Western tradition biohacking, weird things people never heard of? People aren't going to drink things they've never heard of.
And all the experts, the scientists that you mentioned, they're usually so focused on medicine and cures. You're at a deficit, you're trying to get to baseline.
Yeah.
But what if you're looking at this as more vitamins, like their expertise?
Yes.
Right? It's probably a completely different, what?
Right.
Like, that just seems, yes. But the function of it.
That's the thing.
Landing in a can and being tangible is probably mind-blowing to them.
Yeah. And I looked at what was a neuropharmacologist saying, what was the traditional medicine acupuncturist expert saying, and it was like, wait a second, you should be holding hands here, right? Because what you're saying is, I can get you to homeostasis, right? I can balance your hormones in an organic way, in a sustainable way. And then the neuropharmacologist or the biohacker was saying, I can turn on these neurons, or I can, create this sort of level of neurosynapses where you're focused and more present and more energized. And it's like, why aren't you guys talking?
I have this visual of you like with a cauldron and you're just like, yes. Yeah. You're just stirring and yes. And then you're like, I figured it out.
Yeah, but it's also
putting all of this in there.
Yeah, but getting these two camps to speak was like half the battle, and then proving to them, hey, the woos and the right and the nerds, they're going to get each other, because they're going to see that really at the end of the day, what they're after, what they care about is efficacy.
You've bridged the woos and the nerds.
Yes, and I was like I am half woo, half nerd.
Like vision board and spreadsheet. Exactly. They get together.
Yeah.
Okay, so you hit strides. And I remember seeing it was an early deck. And I was like, I had already seen and felt, and I knew the legitimacy and then the beautiful as a marketer. Like, how can you not fall in love?
Thank you.
What was one of the biggest, tipping points where you're like, oh, hold on, buckle up here? You could probably see it coming, but like a tangible data point where you're just, whether it was raising or interest or bringing on huge, known names into the company.
Yeah. So many of those. We've been so blessed, like from day one, to have just big thinkers at the table that really said, wow, here I am investing in future of food, right? Whether it was stem cell, plant-based, lab-derived meats. And here's this whole other category, this whole other thing I didn't even think about, future of drink, right? How are people going to be doing this thing? And luckily, a lot of them came from Silicon Valley, where nootropics were, a very common way to get an edge, usually marketed to or even bought by on a black market type thing. There wasn't really a commercial mass, even like a known brand that was doing this, but it was very known in that community that nootropics would help you sit and code for 8 to 12 hours. And so when I made the suggestion that, well, what if these ingredients could help you in a microdose, right, in a recreational dosing, application, help you feel present at the bar, confident at the bar, less scared to speak to somebody. And they were like, whoa, right? Because they were already very familiar with these ingredients. So a lot of these folks took a flyer on the product just because they saw the vision 50 years down the line. In fact, our first money in was a fund called 50 Year. Seth Bannon and Ella Madej, who, they're doing incredible work in robotics. And they're some of the most brilliant minds I've ever come across. And so they shared a vision. It took that. But then it also took the folks that were, selling consumer products to say like, okay, this is also viable in a marketplace that is pretty far behind the eight.
Beverages difficult anyway,
Yeah.
let alone inventing, educating a
Yes.
whole new category of.
Yeah.
That's a probably a moonshot type of sell to
Yeah.
some CPG templated
Exactly.
funds, but
And I looked at a lot of these brands that were doing future food, and I was like, wow, but they're really leaning into the future part. Where's the sensuality? Where's the food part? Where's the, oh my gosh, I'm sitting to a delicious burger and it's juicy and it's, you know what I
the
mean?
craving,
Yes. People need that full 360 sensorial aspect to know, especially with things that you're consuming, to know that, hey, this is something delicious too, right? Like I'm able to treat myself while I'm nurturing myself. We're primal beings at the end of the day. So how are you eliciting that emotion and that feel good aspect? And so I wanted to bring a lot of that into Kin. We leaned so heavily into that aspect of building out the brand that sort of second aha milestone moment to hit was a massive article that went out from Vogue or on Vogue.com on December 5th, 2018. That was probably right about 18 months into development, into all this guerrilla marketing and sampling that I'd been doing. I'd sat down with Corey Seymour earlier sometime in November, so earlier in the fall. And he said, look, honey, I know Euphoria. I toured with Metallica. I was listening. I was an editor for the Rolling Stone. I did this, and I've been sober X amount of years. At that point, I've been 7-8 years. And he goes, and there's no good end to that path. And I was so excited by this because it was such a great opportunity for me to explain to him, why did we choose that as our category moniker, right? This is another big mantle that we took up. And I took a cocktail napkin. We'd been sitting and having a couple Kin drinks. And I drew a line for him on the cocktail napkin. And I said, pleasure is a spectrum. What you're talking about is pleasure on this end of the spectrum, the extreme end of the spectrum, the extreme high.
Rockstar happiness.
Rockstar happiness. And how fleeting and how out of your body you have to get to truly escape the pressures, the traumas that so many artists actually do come from.
And the drop after.
And then the drop after. And you have to keep it going. And there's actually a name for that. It's ecstasy. And for 60, 70 years since the drug movement, the free love and drug movement in this country, we've been using euphoria and ecstasy synonymously, interchangeably. And that's, first of all,
what if we microdose euphoria?
well, funny enough, because being a word nerd, I was like, wait a second, are they the same thing? Because I knew, just knowing, well, the little Latin that I know, ecstasis means to be outside of stasis, to be outside of self. Okay, so that's, so what is euphoria? Well, funny enough, euphoria means you, right? Phoros, which is a state of being, you inside you. Finding well-being, finding stability, finding, all systems go bliss.
Interesting.
They sit on opposite ends of the spectrum.
So we were misinterpreting.
We were robbing ourselves of an experience.
Literally.
If you don't have the language to express the desire or the state, how can you experience it reliably? We took it out of the vernacular.
And made it seem unattainable unless you were willing to go to
Extremes.
extreme ends that have consequences at the end of the day, right? We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Female leaders, executives, founders, heads up, the Renegade Accelerator is open for enrollment. Renegades are at the top of their game. They're doing all the things, but usually there's something that they really want to do. What you do is you bring your why not now idea into this 8-week program. We're focused on curriculum, the Renegade mindset, collaboration, and accountability. We are all focused on growing our thought leadership, finding more time in the day by leveraging our presence. So it is present even when we are not. We are focused on optimizing our time and money and health. It is a mosaic of all types of women from different backgrounds at the top of their game, and the value exchange is exponential. Here are some why not now ideas that have come to life through Renegade. Why not now write the book? I want to get a board seat. I want to increase my speaking fee. I want to build a company. I want to pivot from corporate into entrepreneurship. I want a promotion within corporate. I want to move my brick and mortar company online so I have more freedom. I want to travel 25% of the year, but not see a dip in income. Those are a variety of why not now ideas that have been greenlit. They're done. What is your why not now idea? We're ready. If you're ready, head to renegadeaccelerator.com for more information and to apply. You know, you have this Vogue article out, and I'm wanting to track because the ride has been incredible. When you felt like this was, you're getting more and more adoption and more traction.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point where you doubt, like, of course, I'm sure there are moments where you doubted yourself, but from the outside looking in, a lot of people see the romantic story, right? They see it's darling. Yep. Whole Foods, then this, Vogue, then we got, but tell me about a moment where you're like, oh shit, I'm ahead of my skis here or something, because I think that we romanticize entrepreneurial like journeys so much.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on guys, if we're not crying once a week, we're probably not trying hard enough.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Let's be real, you know, especially not to bring this into the calculus, but it's very much about dynamic of having young kids too.
Yeah.
So like, tell me about a moment where you're like, I don't know.
Yeah. I will say I was terrified the whole time. I was white knuckling it from the beginning. But I didn't hit crisis, what am I doing mode for like a year and a half.
Amazing.
I rode that high so hard because every single day, whether it was a testimonial or a new retailer or something happening, the world was showing me like, we have been waiting for this thing. And so every validation point along the way, every person I could serve was just a high. It was like, oh my God, I will throw myself on this track.
The feedback loop was feeding you, it sounds like.
This is the sword that I will throw myself and die upon, because
it was worth it.
It was worth it. And you have that sort of like, the hubris or whatever it is, that sort of adrenaline, that good sleep and, not having kids and having this sort of like, almost like kid-like mentality yourself as a 30-something-year-old, living for themselves have. It was like as soon as I became a mom, as soon as I became pregnant, which happened the first year of the pandemic, so 2020, that's when I was like feeling my mortality, seeing the boundaries that I was up against. It was very, very internal, very personal, very quickly. But before then, it was like any challenge that came up, any co-manufacturer that was like, I think you guys are insane, or any rejection that I had, I really took it in stride because I was so purpose-driven. I just knew, I was like, nothing can get in my way. So no rejection, no really deterred me or shook me as hard as it did when I became a mom. That was different. And the world was changing, obviously, around us.
Right. No, for sure. And talk to me a little bit about that. So it sounds like different types of constraints. It's a time and energy, like bandwidth. Would you say that was more of the fear when you became a mom, of you felt boundaries of what you would be able to do? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that what you mean?
Yes, and right? Like, I think it's a different perspective. You get so much clearer on, oh my gosh, this could all be gone tomorrow. And whether it's the business or my life, right? You start to really feel your mortality and like these little angels are depending on me. And so it's a different level of responsibility that kind of sobers you up, no pun. This idea that like, ooh, maybe I should be looking at my budget more. Maybe I should be just doing
like
this
kind of puts your purpose in its place.
Yes.
It's like, yep, and
and this is, if I'm going to make this a sustainable business, that should outlive me, right? Because I've always believed the concept itself, the solution, the brand, whether it's Kin or not, right? Like hopefully Kin, but that this solution should exist and should far outlive me was always something, it was always bigger than me. And so now in the context of motherhood too, it was like, okay, and I need to build it sustainably. You know, we were the first company in this category to raise venture dollars. We were the first like true venture, not like a, you know, there were some
like
companies
really institutional capital.
There were some that sort of started out as an incubated product. And this was really just the first that had the pressures to grow at the rate that a venture capitalist would expect. And yet we were still experimenting, we were still building, we were still getting smart. So I think for me, it was like, this is where you land the plane, just start building a very sustainable model. And by that point, right, because 2018, tail end of 2018, we're coming on 2-3 years on the market when I'm making these shifts. And we were a big ship already because we had grown quite a bit. COVID changed some things about our retail plan, but we had to now maneuver a cruise ship. I had built this massive platform, and that I knew was going to be a huge undertaking. And I had to get back down to speedboat.
Operating like making those quick
being
decisions.
nimble. Yeah.
And your resourcefulness has really impressed me, though, right? So I think of we probably met through Tony Hsieh.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's how we originally connected, right? Of course. But he always talked about resourcefulness versus resources and talk about someone who really was able to leverage that. Yeah. You're still pretty lean, right? I mean, it's pretty incredible to see the numbers you're pulling and the distribution and the product line with a lean team.
Yeah.
So has that always been, you probably could have raised a lot more money, but intentionally have you been focused on growth that feels like truly sustainable, or how have you made those decisions?
That was new. It was in the back of my head, right? This whole idea of just got to lock it up in 2021. I think if I'm honest with myself, 2022 was when I took my own medicine. We were about to raise from a private equity fund who was parading around as being very founder friendly, and we want to come and help you and
founder friendly.
Look at all these areas that we are experts in. And you can go and
operated.
Yeah, that's right. I've been a founder, and look at this company that I took to exit. But
sorry.
Yeah.
There's no sarcasm.
I was gonna say,
like we've heard it.
There's no pain there. Oh, no, it's a marvel at or it's pretty remarkable what somebody will tell you when they really see an opportunity to be
on the ride.
Yeah, they really, really will tell you whatever you want to hear. And we were in 5-6 months of M&A level diligence. I mean, to say that. I mean, the requests that were coming in were like, where were your freelancers born? I'm like, what is this stall tactic about? Like, it started to get so obvious that these are not diligence questions. So that's a whole another story for another day, but it was one of the very defining moments of Kin's trajectory and my career. I think you're told, raise as much money as you can, raise it when you don't need it. And I had to walk away from a $16 million deal because I knew that these guys didn't have my best interest in mind. They didn't have my investors' best interest in mind, and they didn't have the brand's best interest. They didn't really understand what we were building at the end of the day. That was a really tough call. It forced the issue on being lean and sustainable. Pre-COVID, we were 37 people. We're now 9. We've been 9 for 2 years and 9 full-time, 2 contractors.
And just
that
from
was
a
tough.
Distribution standpoint, to give people context, like you're in Target.
Yeah.
You are pushing product. Like your volume is there.
Yeah.
With 9 people.
Yeah, we're number one. We are the top seller in our category at Target. We're the top seller in our category at Sprouts. We're national. We're crushing it across verticals. There are 3 main verticals in this category that matter. Number one to us is the natural channel. Second is masstige, right? Conventional, the Targets and Krogers of the world. And then the specialty. So like liquor stores, vitamin shop, things like that.
Even hotel mini bars.
That's right.
I was like, yes, I love to see like the play. I'm like, oh, this is a sign. This is good.
Yeah. We have yet to fully crack that one, but having known me.
Call Jen if you're listening.
I will stock your minibar. But knowing my history, that the hotel space is near and dear to my heart. And I think one of the best places to sort of discover something.
Yeah.
So we're coming for that as well. But yeah,
it
was
just Palm Springs last weekend. So you were there.
Yeah. Done and done. But yeah, there's just so many things along the way that like talk about resourcefulness, talk about the learnings from Tony. It's just like, if the idea and the product is real, if it's good and you're thinking big, you just got to do what you got to do to make it work while living in your integrity. But like, sustain as long as you can, as long as you're the last person in the room standing.
Yeah.
You're good.
I agree. I think he instilled this sense of I have it. I think it's from him. Like, don't raise. As usually when people are coming to me looking for advice, like, do you think I should raise right now? Should I? Like, as long as you can, don't.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might be surprised by that because he did have his various funds and he invested a lot, but it was such a good lesson of that resourcefulness. And I've like 99 examples of that.
Yeah. Right? Well, and I think too, what I took away from our time with him is who are you surrounding yourself with? And for better or for worse, he had some great people around him and he had some not so great people around him. And to me, it was the make or break. I mean, you watched it from the ground up of like, how quickly can a culture shift when you get one bad seed? One person who's misaligned with the mission, one person who just doesn't get it. And there's a je ne sais quoi. There is a special magic to having the right DNA in the mix, right? Literally the right mentality, the right way of being, honesty, openness. And as soon as you get somebody in there that's like, I'm gonna be negative in this way, or I'm gonna be conniving in that way, or I'm gonna be out for myself.
Especially when you're in growth mode, because that's gonna scale. Yeah. The bad will scale.
Yeah. And character is built in crisis. And, that is the nature of startups. You're always going to be in crisis at some point. So I think, having had this, this was my third venture. I registered my first business at 23. I got into business with somebody while I was in the world of Tony Hsieh, learned a lot of lessons. And then this one really was where I cut my teeth as a solo founder to say, like, how do I show up when no one's looking? Yeah. What happens when
the hard yards?
Yeah, the shit hits the fan. Who am I?
So I'm going to take us on a slight pivot here. I travel a lot, and everywhere I look, especially even with Renegade women, it's like you can see it in people's eyes that there's this moment in time where a lot of people are equally burnt out and bored at the same time.
Interesting, yeah.
And that's amazing. That's what we love at Renegade, is to help with that and really help people find that capacity where it's infinite and flying higher and more efficiently, right? But you have, you're a mom of two young kids. You travel a lot, obviously. What are some of the things you would say to those people who are feeling that way right now? Either questions they could ask themselves, or anything tactically that you've found to be helpful. Because the whole you can have it all, it's bullshit, right? You can have it all, but not at the same time usually. And you define what your all is. Yeah. It's different for everyone. But there's kind of this old school line that I think sometimes just drives women into the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're so right. And try as you may. My secret weapon for moments where I just feel like I don't know who I am. I have no energy for this. I'm underappreciated, because these are all the things we feel as mothers, as women. get sleep. Like, that is such a practical, annoying mother thing to say. But when I get good sleep, when I literally pay for good sleep, right? Like, just have my nanny or, beg my ex to take them for, actually, I don't have to. He's such a good dad. But being able to just get that space, being able to truly nurture my sleep and not say, oh, I have some moments to myself. Let me further dive into deep work or, stress myself. It's getting that space that gives me the perspective that I need. That's why I start with sleep as a secret weapon.
That's great.
But it's just a practical way to say, like, if you're physically out of sync, how can you expect your mind to react in kind? There's no override button, right? So I think for me, it's be well within, then come to a blank page, literally. Get a blank paper on, assess, even in bullets, gibberish, whatever it is. What are the things that I'm proud of that I've done in the last 30 days? What are the things that I'm most proud of that I've done in the last year? How can I do more of that? And how can I dump the rest? I'm not winning any medals here, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think when it comes to holding down the fort and doing all the things and, being demure and delightful in a home setting and then being a badass in the boardroom, it's just like you just have to pick the lane that's nurturing you the most, and decide what energizes you the most. And that's hard because there's mom guilt associated with some of that.
Yeah, and it's also, that might mean turning some things off or saying no to things that, it's why not stop something right now?
Why not stop something?
Which can be hard. Mm-hmm. Sometimes harder than starting things, right?
Yeah.
But no, that's great advice. What's one thing you keep learning over and over?
Oh, gosh. This is going to be a boring one, but it's so true. It just has to be reiterated.
The power of sleep.
The power of sleep and the power of hiring and firing. That is by far, you're only as great as you're as strong as your weakest link.
Who's coming to mind is Tony Hsieh. Most people wait too long to hire and wait too long to fire. I'll never forget he said that.
Yep. Hire slow, fire fast. There's nothing more true because honestly, where I find burnout is when I'm picking up the pieces for other people. Because it's just like, I don't need to be doing this, right? Like you feel it's a low vibration thing. You start to resent yourself for making the wrong decision or for holding on too long to someone. I think women too, and I just because I can speak for myself as someone who kind of prides myself on being nurturing and forgiving and buying into someone's potential. I always want to just like, come on, you got this.
Same.
But it gets to the point where you're like, we're 9. If the one person is out of sync, all 9 of us fall like dominoes. You know, it's not a corporation of tens of thousands of people where someone's in the corner playing Tetris. No one notices. No, in our business, it's like if you miss an email, we all lose. So efficiency, speed, you can do it with love, but, holding on to someone because you're worried about hurting their feelings is just, damaging to the whole crew and the mission. The mission gets disserviced. So I always have to remind myself of that.
And how do you discern between when to make something happen versus let it happen?
Ooh. I'm a control freak, so I'm very much about make it happen.
Right, because you can, right? Sheer force of will. The data has shown.
Yeah. But at the same time, there's things that I'll have an investor or someone say, or I'll see a competitor doing something, and I'll say, my God, we're the best in the business. Why aren't we doing that? And then I have to remind myself, what are the filters that we keep using to decide where we show up in the world, how we show up in the world? Just stick to that. And those are the moments where it's a let it happen.
It's your filter.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like when it happens, it will be exactly the right time. We will be supported in all the right ways versus like getting shoved in the corner of a shelf just to say I'm on that shelf. No one's going to win doing that. No one's going to win just taking, kind of a haphazard, desperate pick-me approach. It's, hey, I want to be in strategy. I want to be in collaboration with my partners. And if it can't happen now, I'll let it happen when it works, Well,
and the space has changed. Your categories changed so much. How do you feel when you see celebrities peddling product or creating product, some of which don't even drink.
Right.
And they're creating alcoholic new brands and or non. It just seems like, the trend, it's got to be pretty muddy and noisy. Good thing you have such a strong brand. And it's been rooted. But how does that feel to you right now? It feels like everybody's got something now.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because look at any industry, whether it's consumer facing or not, there's going to be your sort of genuine disruptors, people that just want to solve a problem. Maybe they're not the best at scaling it, but they're real. A lot of those exist. I'm not saying Kin's the only one. I'm actually saying there's a lot of folks early days and even sprouting up here and there now that are just locked into the mission and they're creating beautiful products, wonderful products. And then there are some folks that are seeing the growth and seeing the headlines, and they're being more opportunistic about their strategy. They're lifting brand cues from other brands that are working. There's a lot of copycatting happening in the industry right now, which I think does a disservice to the audience, right? It does a disservice to the drinker. We're not a saturated enough industry yet to just start carbon copying other brands. Like if you
get noticed.
Yeah, it'll get noticed. It's also like that drinker is being served right now. There are thousands of other pockets of communities in this category that are not being served or seen, right? That's something that I really value and love about Liquid Death, for example. It's canned water, but it serves an audience that didn't feel really that seen in that space. And it's been able to have this like fluidity.
Literally.
Literally. That allows them to move into different categories because that audience is like, I'll follow you into battle.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a great brand that services an audience versus a land grab, cash grab type brand that's saying, this is a cute category to play in. We'll attach a celebrity to it and see if we can make a couple million. There's not enough there's not enough solution there that I think really honors and sees the audience and serves the audience. And so they have turned against that model and that approach. And so I love it. I think you're seeing a lot more democracy around product development and the things that consumers are voting for based on their interests and how they identify because of social media.
Well, and I want to note one thing, and then we can head into rapid fire too. So I want to make sure we make a little concoction or something here. Yeah. But there can be so much confusion. I know my experience this last year has been a health journey, odyssey, and learning more. And at one point I had all these supplements on the counter and I was like, I don't know which one's working, what's countering one out. It's like marketing. Yeah. Half of it's working and half of it's not. You're just not sure which half. Yeah. And so I started looking for, some more just expertise of who do I go to for this? And not just a functional medicine, learned it on Tuesday, teaching it on Thursday. Right, but I want some medicine, some MD in there too. And I was thinking about you, and the other day, and I am arriving there, but it can be so confusing. And it's like, you're on this, you're in this maze. Mm-hmm. But when you find someone you trust and respect, right? So I'm looking at my skincare products the other day, and you come to mind. Because I think of you as, yes, you've created this and built this, but it's what went into this and the research and the why and the understanding. Where I was like, I bet Jen knows. Can you just be my, go-to for all things? Is this good or bad? And so, yes, this is where you are as a founder, but I really think we need more people that we can trust who have done the work to guide us, because there is just so much out there. Yeah. And it's expensive too. So I look forward to the day that, you're just, it's like an umbrella. I see you being able to transcend and go anywhere you want with functional, real good health products or thought leadership, so thank you for doing the work.
Thank you for recognizing that. And I think it just comes down to one sort of point that I glazed over, was that when I was having sort of a internal crisis, right? A crisis of everything from purpose to self-confidence, right? And just wanting to really connect with the divine and like, why am I here? I was like, you know what? If I don't have my own personal perspective on how to live a good life, who am I to share with anyone what a good life is, how to arrive there, how can I help anyone? And that's really what I know that I'm here to do. So I threw myself into the practice and the study of Ayurvedic medicine, which is a sister science to yoga. It literally translates to the life of, or the art and science of life, right? So it's kind of like this circular, beautiful, holistic practice of like looking at the scientific basis of how to nurture and heal, but also the artistic, fluid, acknowledging all the ways that an organic life is unique, right? Mm-hmm. As individuals, we are so unique, what we bring to the table and how we react to things. And so having grace, right? And the elemental truth. So what you're saying, when like everything is so confusing, there are elemental facts that don't change. Those are the things that we can rely on. The things that really drew me to Ayurveda is like, there can be so many conflicting ideas, but when you look at how they lay it out elementally, it's very clear. Fire cannot be water. Water cannot be air. So when you look and break these elemental aspects of our lives, not just ingredients, but our lives down, you can start to assess like what's good for me, what is my internal compass, my internal composition, how are all those things leading me to react a certain way on a personal level, professional level, etc. So I was fascinated by that philosophy of life. I was the simplicity of it was just like, I mean, it gave me the chills as I learned and studied it. And so to your point, those concepts apply to anything, whether it's skincare, in beauty, beverage, food, or relational attributes. Like, how do we improve our social lives, our relationship with our children, our families? So I love it. I geek out over it. I'm certainly not the inventor of this truth. I like to just say I'm an arbiter. I'm a witnesser of it. And so I agree with you. Like, it should be able to apply to everything that we do. And there should be more people teaching this because it demystifies, first of all, and we're all living like lives of confusion and squirrel moments, right?
They've got it figured out. Oh, that's how you do it.
Yeah. And that can bring a sense of grounding and control, which I think we all need to an extent today in a world of chaos and misinformation. But it also brings a sense of grace. Because you can recognize, wow, there's so many ways that people are misguided. I'm misguided, right? Mm-hmm. And so we all just have to have a little bit of empathy for each other.
Margin of error for all of us, right? Like, give it to us. Yeah. So a couple of quick questions for you. Rapid fire. When I say the word renegade, who comes to mind?
You.
No, this is not a loaded question. Okay, thank you. But if that's not an available answer, thank you. Does anyone pop in?
Oh, God. I wouldn't be here without all the renegades in my life. I think the whole rule breaking, like being able to do things to the beat of your own drummer, is what makes life rich and amazing. So...
sounds like your dad is a total renegade.
Man, I mean, he is. And funny enough, I don't think he would identify as that. I actually think my mom identifies more of the renegade. She'll be the first to be like, I deemed myself an essential worker during COVID.
Renegade.
Yeah. So that energy is definitely in my DNA, but they express it a little bit differently. But that's a good one. My parents are definitely renegades.
I love it. What keeps you up at night? If anything, sounds like sleep is...
Toddlers, and good ideas. It's funny because a lot of people are just like, oh, what do you stress about? I don't stress until I'm like deep in the day. At night, it's really ideation. Like, I keep a journal next to me and I love to write just crazy ideas. I've got thousands of them. If you need it, we'll do a whole pod and like just distribute ideas.
Well, Tony used to have a someday maybe like Evernote, I remember, and he would just look at it every Friday and like, no, just... park it there. Yep. Shelve it. It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to do that. We should do that. Or just all the ideas we don't want to do, but we want someone to do.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Maybe
well,
we'll
don't
invest,
forget
maybe we won't, but
the infamous or famous, if you will, depends on who you ask, Post-it note wall.
Oh my gosh.
the Ogden.
Yeah.
It just grew and grew and grew.
You never know what's going to happen with your Post-it note.
That's right.
Okay, pirates or ninjas, who's tougher and why?
Oh my gosh. Ninjas are tougher.
Who has more fun, though?
Oh, of course, pirates.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Well, and the reason why I think ninjas are tougher is because discipline is the toughest thing you could do. Doing whatever the hell you want as a pirate, that's more fun, of course.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And if we were to go back to walking into that Whole Foods store before this clerk got the assignment, what would you say to yourself in that moment?
Get ready, girl. It's not going to look anything like you
Buckle
think.
up.
Yeah. You're here doing market research.
And the like aura around you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for doing the work you're doing.
Thank you for shedding light on it.
Absolutely. On the ride. And it's cool to bear witness to someone who's found their zone.
Thank you. It really means a lot. And you taught me a lot too, just about how to express yourself authentically, like not be afraid to do that. I really want to do it more because I obviously have a lot to say. But I really think that experience of being in Vegas and coming up against so many things, but also just broadening my brain around what was possible.
Yeah.
You were just such a pivotal person in that for me. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It was a container. Like it was just combustion and serendipitous collisions. Expander.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Probably
bottoms up
right there.
To the future.
To the future.